let's cowboy up and try it. So where do you get DMT? Well, I got it off the dark web. There are several dark web criminal marketplaces that sell a variety of criminal products and services and substances. Now, getting DMT is illegal basically across the entire planet, except in certain religious circumstances. So you can actually go online. You can find ayahuasca churches. Ayahuasca, the active ingredient in ayahuasca is DMT, one of the active ingredients. Ayahuasca, those trips comes in a tea. Those trips will last you typically, 5, 7, 9 hours. Not something I really wanted to do. I wanted that 15-minute trip. So you can buy DMT vape cartridges on the dark web. A gram of this stuff in a vape cartridge will run you around $70 to $80. And I'm sitting there going, okay, $70 to $80, send it. So I got myself some Monero, which is, for those who don't know, if you're going on the dark web and you're wanting to buy something, they want cryptocurrency. Back in the day, which I mean just a few years ago, back in the day, the way that you would pay for, if you were buying stolen credit cards, if you were buying testosterone, if you were buying today DMT, well, back then if you were buying DMT, you would pay for it with Bitcoin. Well, it turns out that Bitcoin is not anonymous. So you buy that shit with Bitcoin, and guess what? 3 to 5 years later, once that marketplace gets shut down, if it gets shut down by law enforcement goes through all the Bitcoin wallets and they sit there and say, ha, this motherfucker right here ordered something illegal. What did he order? Then they look up the order. And before you know it, you got a knock at the door. The solution for that was this thing called Monero, which is a privacy-centered token. So private that law enforcement nor anyone else on the planet is able to determine who's using it, where it's being sent to, or what's being bought with it. So most dark web marketplaces these days, they use Monero. That's what you want to use. You go over to Telegram, these fucking idiots, they're using Cash App, they're using Chime, they're using PayPal, and they're using some cryptocurrency as well. Fucking idiots over there. You don't want to do anything on Telegram because you're going to go to jail. And what happens when you go to jail? You learn how to poo in front of other men because that's the jail experience. I order myself one of these vape cartridges, and it arrives 4 or 5 days later. Now, here's the thing. I wanted to get another order of this in time for today's show so I could actually use it and comment on it as that experience was going on. It did not arrive. It's slated to arrive this week. So what we're going to do is we're going to make kind of an accompanying short and release that so that people can see what that experience is like in real time as well. So you inhale it. So the way you can take DMT is you can inhale it, you can inject it if you're a fucking idiot, or you can just swallow it like in a tea or something like that. I chose to smoke. Got this in, and they tell you that, hey, when you first try it, so those who don't know, DMT is the strongest psychedelic on the planet. Those who have used LSD before, I have not. Those who have used LSD before, evidently it way the hell dwarfs the LSD experience. So yes, of course, my first psychedelic, I'm going to go with the big boy. They tell you when you take this, the instructions are, you inhale it, lungs full, you hold it for a count of 10, and then you exhale. During that first inhalation is about 5 seconds into it is when you start to experience this. Now, the idea for the DMT experience is that it's not one huff, it's not 2 huffs, but it's 3 or 4 that breaks through your conscious reality into these experiences that you see people talking about, where they're surrounded by different beings or a different reality. And sometimes these beings talk, sometimes they do not. Sometimes they welcome you, sometimes they do not. So it takes 3 to 4 of these huffs, counting to 10, to experience that. So, I get it in. And I let it sit for a couple of weeks because Brady's not really sure about this stuff. So it's on my desk, a little vape pen, for a couple of weeks. And what happens is I had a production meeting with Shayna and Brian, and they said something, and I mentioned DMT. And I did not tell them that I had the vape pen. I was like, at some point I'll try it. And I forgot what the conversation was. But later that night, it's time to try it. First huff. Took the vape pen, took the huff, held it in the lungs, started counting. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. By the time I hit 5, I hear this. The only thing I hear, it's like all sound shuts out and just a ringing, just that ring in the ear. And then I hear almost this knocking, and that knocking has been present through that throughout the entire experience with that vape cartridge. It's like you're knocking to gain entry. So it's kind of this in a set of 3. All right. At the same time, I started to experience visual distortions, and what I would see, they would both be with eyes open and eyes closed. I would see green and red flashes, also streaks in very geometric figures. All right. So those who have looked at DMT articles before, like I'm on the DMT subreddit, it talks about seeing these geometric shapes in front of you, and that's exactly what I started to see. That was the first huff, very light. It is something that when it hit me, it was overwhelming. It swamped in and really overrode every sense that I had, tactile, vision. I don't remember the smells, but auditory. It just overrode everything to the point that I did not want or desire to take a second puff. That was the first experience, and it lasted about 15 minutes. At the same time, it was like when you looked at an object, it was like that object was kind of pulsating at the same time. So that was my first experience, that first day. Second day, though, I'm getting a little bit more brave. I was like, okay, I did not die. I did not go crazy. Everything tends to be okay. I went back to the Reddit subreddit on DMT and was reading about the experiences, and I spent a lot of time reading about these things because I wanted to make sure everything was all right. Now, and they tell you that this is a substance that was used by shamans in pre-Columbia America. Something that's been used by American Indians for years to experience that religious side of things. It's got that religious connotation almost embedded into it. So they tell you when you take these trips to make sure that you are in the right mindset, that it's something to be respected. And I really took that to heart. So my second experience with it, which was the night after or 2 nights after that, was sleeping in the living room on the couch. Everyone else was asleep because I didn't want anybody awake while I was doing this shit. So everyone was asleep, had the lights out, took the first puff, felt that onset coming in, immediately followed it with a second for 10 seconds, and then immediately followed with a third for 10 seconds. And this started at probably midnight. I stayed up the entire night doing this DMT cartridge trip. And I saw a lot of what people in other experiences talk about. The only light that I had in our living room, we've got this bay window that looks out into some woods. And as I smoked this DMT and had this experience, I started to see things. I never had anything talk to me, but I started to see things through that window, the geometric shapes. I saw what could only be described as and this is the thing about these trips. It's a lot of people are not able to put into words or to talk about it appropriately. And it reminded me, as I said, I'm not a Christian, but I'm well read. And it reminded me of John trying to put into words the visions that he saw for Revelations and some of those other writings that he's got. That idea of the finite mind trying to put into words something that is infinite. And that's what I experienced. So I saw these figures. I saw what could best be described as that machine elf of a female. I saw the jester that was there. And the weird thing about that jester is looking at the jester, nothing was spoken, but it was like knowledge was conveyed. Looking at that jester's face through that window started out almost mocking. And then as that trip continued, turned from mocking to humorous to understanding. And at the same time, there was this other type of being there, and it just saw the head. And the only thing that could be described as that is just I don't want to use the word elf. I don't think that's right, but I don't really understand or can put it into anything else that's somewhat comparable. Not a machine elf though. This was just a big kind of elf face in the window. And reading on some of these experiences, the familiarity, but also the almost a dispassionate being that's out there. And that's what I saw in this I'm getting out of my depth is what I'm getting with these descriptions. So I saw these things. I saw this one face that morphed from. I got this idea of this face being a noble face, a king-like face, and the more I looked at it, the more it morphed from that king-like face into an animalistic type face, and the entire time, not scared, not worried, just a feeling of, as the articles say, a feeling of familiarity, a feeling of peace, and more than that, a feeling of belonging to something that is bigger, but is full of compassion and love and understanding and not judgmental, was my experience. So I saw these sights, but more than anything was those feelings that was emanating from somewhere of compassion, of understanding, of not judging, of just love. Now, that being said, what do I think about that? I've always wanted to be a religious person. Always. I've always wanted that belief structure. I do not know, as real as that seemed, I do not know if that is something that is coming from the outside in or something that comes from the inside out. And I think that's a lot of the issue with DMT. I think that looking at it now, and I'm probably going to try DMT about once a month, but looking at it now, I think there's a reason that with a substance like this, the shamans Even people today attach a religious context to it. I think that the experience is going to reflect what you are bringing to it. So if you're bringing to it a chaotic mind, if you're bringing to it a lot of strife, a lot of stress, I think that you read very few bad experiences with DMT, but I think that those negative experiences are a result of the individual using it and whatever type of baggage they're bringing to that experience. And I think that's one of the reasons that as you read Reddit and some of these other studies and experiences that are going on, that religious context is almost embedded into it. That if you approach it with this idea of, hey, I'm going to approach it with an open mind, positive, that you will get that in return. That's part of my belief of what's going on right now. I don't think that satisfies at all the uniformity of users' experiences with DMT. That's the weird thing with this. I saw, sure, I think that you can justify away the geometric shapes. Absolutely, I think that. I think you can justify away a lot of the auditory stuff that goes on. I do not think that you can justify away, make excuses for the similarity of the beings that you see when you do this substance. And I don't have an answer for that. That people are seeing the same things. I don't have an answer for that. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm trying to use my very finite mind to talk about things that are really indescribable. The best that I can say is that, again, looking out that window as things were morphing and these faces were coming into just kind of a reality, the only thing that I felt coming from that was just this understanding and compassion and love.